Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we are joined by Stephen Davis, the visionary leader known as the silverback of cloud and the grandfather of the data center industry. With over 30 years of global experience, Stephen has orchestrated transformative strategies in digital infrastructure, cloud migration, and AI innovation. As a renowned public speaker, author, and CIO coach, he has penned influential guides like Infrastructure Modernization. His dynamic career spans executive leadership, consulting, and groundbreaking technological innovation. I asked Stephen to join us here today to share his story and insights on building a software-defined world, transforming enterprises, and coaching CXOs to achieve sustainable success in today's digital era. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. How you doing?
Good to be here. Hey,
Yeah,
fantastic. Actually, had the stigma, that name that stuck somehow, the grandfather of the industry. But yeah, I guess the whites.
the white beard is against your plea there. So, how did you even get into this? Were your parents in technology? Did you just pick up the baton for them? Were you a little kid playing with putting together computer parts in the garage at home? Are you just carrying the torch?
That's actually an interesting piece of the question because I'm rather the conundrum of the industry, if you will. My friends always call me the redheaded conundrum, even though the hair's gone. Because I'm a eternal jock. Football, baseball, as a world-class gymnast, and focusing on sports all the way through college and the likes.
I love it.
Major in college after I gave up football at Washington State University, became neurophysiology. So I started getting into things that more passionate things. So the conundrum is a jock, but at the same time, I turned out to be a complete nerd and getting in, and things just tend to uh, absorb very quickly with me. The understanding of how the entire ecosystem infrastructure actually works together.
Mm-hmm.
So this comes from the Mensa background as well, but being able to see the patterns and identify and create these systematic outcomes.
I love
One time in college, I was infatuated with implants, making a Luke Skywalker hand fully integrated into the nervous system, or a camera and replace the eye with a camera. So these type of things, which is a mix of technology and neurophysiology. In doing that, I copied an experiment of Dr. Itakura in Osaka University, where he put 32 electrodes into a dead monkey's hand and made the fingers move. I took it one step further. I wrote a 100-line program of ins and outs in CMS back in the day, put it all in there and wrote the program to say the ins and outs, to contort, dilate, and so on, the nervous system, to put that dead monkey's hand on a keyboard and program it to type my name. It
Stop.
was a huge success. Yeah. This guy, I didn't kill the monkey because the next year I was already invited over to work with Dr. Itakura at Osaka University. He heard about my experiment and he was like, "Great, how are we doing this?" Right?
Right.
And so off to actually Kansai Gaidai, the international school, and then Osaka University after that with Dr. Itakura. But the university came back with a front page newspaper of the Frankenstein experiments our postdocs are working on. During this front page piece, okay, it came out with a full page retraction the next day. Now, IBM was actually there on a recruiting trip, and they saw it was just one of our gifted undergrads. We didn't kill the monkey. He actually had 72 hours of a frozen hand severed from the monkey that was already dead to basically write 7,800 lines of code and have the success. So
Wow.
zero sleep. I didn't know about this until 3 months later when my inbox, because email didn't exist back then, my inbox at Kansai Guy, I started filling up with newspapers and letters and everything else. And one with IBM requesting a meeting with me.
Mm.
So from Tokyo, right? They flew down from Tokyo down to Osaka and met up and started talking about this whole neurophysiology department they have out in Yamato-ku in the middle of nowhere, a lab,
Right.
an R&D lab. So basically going through my ambition and student loans now as I give up my scholarship for football. So all my student loans are starting to pile up. Okay, hey, a $34,000 a year job sounds pretty good right now. The next year off I go into a 3,000 Japanese person
Company.
development lab
That's quite
out
the
in the middle of
culture
nowhere.
shock too. Yeah, we talked. We for those who don't know, we spoke from Japanese when we did the meet and greet before. Japan is a very unique culture. What I can only imagine to be in that environment. What year was this?
This is actually back in 1991,
Yeah,
1992, after I
yeah,
graduated,
yeah.
1992. But the interesting thing is because I'd say then I was fluent. Now I'll say I'm proficient because it's living outside Japan for the last 25 years. It does tend to diminish.
Yep.
But being completely immersed in R&D with Japanese, speaking Japanese every day for 3 years, you don't actually see yourself. Okay, so we're out doing setai, the whining and dining, going to izakayas. Everybody's smoking. I smoke my cigars. I don't smoke cigarettes. And I'd get up, out with vendors, out with customers, out with work associates. I see my reflection. Oh, light.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
immersed. But yeah, what a great experience. Once we figured out that AI, neural networks, back then required 15 trillion calculations per second, and the compute capacity just didn't exist.
Hmm.
He moved on. I became a TPF developer, innovating and integrating Sabre into the mainframes with TPF. So another new innovation area and in R&D in IBM Japan. So but the story actually continues on because in 1995, my buddies and I got together, and we get together. We tend to drink champagne or margaritas, get pizza, and we start. We're all IT guys and hardcore. Some of our really hardcore database developers and so on. And we start hearing about this thing called the internet.
Hmm.
I have at that point I've already started the offshore development division, doing
Right.
development in India and China for the first time with IBM, with HCL, and with Bycast in China, and then in the Philippines here. I already started down that path of doing some good things. This whole thing called the internet was popping up.
Right.
So
Probably just a fad.
like Bill Gates said, it won't last, right? Back in the day, before he said content was king. I was setting up satellite dish connections, the T1 connections between my India lab on hire and Japan
Hmm.
back then. So doing all the network setup for all that, we started going through and designing on the back of a pizza box on the inside of how we would do this whole internet thing. Right?
Hmm.
How would we deploy it? Who would be the main contact? You couldn't go to the internet and do your research. This didn't exist. So
Right.
finding the dial-up server networks, right? The hyper chassis didn't existed out there, or even the Livingston dial-up network chassis for the modems, the massive modem banks. We had to go through, do quick research here and there, make a lot of phone calls after that. But on this night, we designed how we would do it. After a couple of days of actually the guys making an effort, identifying where we would go, I go back to my job. They needed some funding, so I put the funding in, some initial pieces to make sure.
Hmm.
And they registered the first ISP in Japan,
Hmm.
Global Online Japan. So otherwise known as GOL.com. So it was an interesting piece. We had great success. 6 months later, I joined as a CTO of the company because we were starting growing it. And this is how startups really work, right? You still
Right.
have your day job, but you're still working on getting things rolling. What a great team. Built everything else, about 120 employees. We had 24 points of presence, pops around Japan, all interconnected. So, creating our dial-up network program, right? And of course, when DSL came out, ADS,
All the rage.
exactly. This is when NTT started getting into it. Years
For
before.
for people that don't know, NTT is a major telecom company in Japan.
Yeah. Okay. So that's how far ahead we were. And since we had our small little data center back in the day, back when data centers were still more rooms, but we actually had a raised floor, made it actually a more pragmatic, a logical, how are we managing airflow? How are we managing the shelves of tower servers sitting on them? How are we putting the racks? The racks are brand new pretty much back then because everything's either mainframe or telco house based.
Right.
Uh,
And
and so,
you're probably
yeah,
getting a lot of stuff custom built, I imagine, at that phase.
yeah. So even
Yeah.
our email server was home built. These things didn't exist back then. So
Yeah.
we had our amazing engineer, Peter, who actually built our entire email platform. A very
Wow.
eccentric guy. So one of the, I guess my skills is ability to herd cats and to manage unicorns.
That's right.
We got the attention of a company called Exodus Communications, a huge data center company out of the United States that was still in startup mode.
Hmm.
So they acquired us for stock of $65 million. Fantastic. Everybody's happy. Exodus grew to an $85 billion company. Unfortunately, the dot-com fallout, the $22 billion bankruptcy, and the stock was underwater at the time. So
Wow.
time to start something new.
Wow. So you hit a valuation of 85 billion. And then at the end, it was negative 22 billion.
Yeah. So I had 1 million shares of stock
That's a
trading
big
at
swing.
$85 a share.
Of course. Yeah.
It didn't exist until I would exercise it. But me being CTO of the company, because I became
Yeah.
CTO of Exodus as well, I have a blackout period of being able to trade stock. I have to give the SEC 6 months.
Right. You're not allowed. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so it would have been better not to be a C level. So
Right.
anybody that's in a company that's in a rising piece like AI, and so if there's a fall of a dot-com piece, sometimes it's better not to have that C title or just a consultant on the by contract, but C level by title. It's actually better sometimes. But Yeah, it was an interesting time, to say the least. I came out with my first book, Sivad and Chorin, during that time. When I get down or whatever, I start my catharsis is to write.
Mm,
So
mm,
I wrote the Data Center Operational Readiness Guide, which is a 2,200-page process and training manual of how to run data centers. I wrote
mm.
my first sci-fi, as you can see the blurred, of Sivad and Chorin. You read the blurriness on that, but it's on Amazon as well. It's got 4 more in the works on that. Uh, that's fun. It's a young adult fi adventure, right? Yeah. So that's always a fun one. But going in, starting to create my own business, but at that point with company that we again starting off from the back of a pizza box on a couple-day binge of drinking champagne with my buddies. We created an e-commerce platform that was multi-tenant that
Mm.
then CRM and VoIP and so on. This is before software as a service existed. So
Right,
we had to create our own hypervisors in order to run this the underlying technology to create a multi-tenant platform that doesn't you can't see the other companies or
right,
individuals' information. It's
right,
segregated. Otherwise, we have to go back to LPARs by mainframe and start segregating by logical partitions.
right.
Yeah, so it's before cloud, right? Before some kid redefined the whole thing as cloud
Which is
by
really
our
just someone else's computer, but I digress.
yeah. So creating this technology was fantastic. We were selling e-commerce platforms at $2,000 per month, up to
Wow.
OPEX model, reoccurring.
Wow.
Of course, doing things that have a diminishing return. E-commerce now is free. Microsoft came out with a $20 CD. Install it with
Mm.
your CD, and you're off and running. So our
Yeah.
2,000 a month went down to basically zero, even though Rakuten was using it at first. Digital Garage is using it at first for running their systems. So we call this Mojo, Project Mojo. In the end, it was like, so it was Mojo, but it was started as Shibuya because in Japan, running a
Sure.
multi-tenant system, e-commerce platform, a sales platform. It was fantastic. So that's an application service provider. As we move forward, that got sold for $1 million to Digital Garage. Fantastic. We all broke even. I continued with Silverback with the CRM, the voice over
Mm-hmm.
IP,
Mm-hmm.
not local residential, but enterprise voice. We created virtual PBX platforms. We made Asterisk multi-tenant. We integrated SER and with Asterisk, and which is still today is very difficult to be done. So we were doing things then innovation-wise that still today people have challenges with, even ServiceNow or Goldmine multi-level, right, CRM system with voice services. So integrating all that together as a singular platform for SMEs to run their entire operations. But we
Wow.
were probably about 7 years to 10 years too soon.
Wow. The pioneers get the arrows, the settlers get the land. It sounds
This is back when everybody and their mother was doing VoIP and talking about it and everything else and diluting the market rather than saying, this is about technology. And for us, it was about technology because it was very bleeding edge.
like. Mm-hmm.
2001, 2003 timeframe
Right.
and developing it. And the internet was still struggling to be able to support that level of streaming.
Yep.
Of course, the video conferencing we put in, the soft phones,
That's
the
right when
IP.
Skype came out, early 2000. I remember I was in Japan. I was spending $100 a month, a couple $100 a month buying long distance calling cards. And then I learned about this thing, Skype. And I got my parents to download it. And we can talk as long as we want with this for free. And I can see you. Why would I ever buy a long distance calling card again? I remember I was in Suzuka in Shibuyaku
Oh yeah,
during that.
it was an interesting time. Vanage in the United States for retail. Skype was out. Of course, Yahoo and MSN also had voice
Yep. Yep.
services.
Yep.
So Hotmail, but where did they go, right?
Right.
So
Right.
literal the king of IP to IP calls back then and talking chatting. Going through that, we were actually talking to Skype in the end in 2009 about an acquisition.
Hmm.
So this was an interesting time because it got all the way underwritten by KPMG. We got to the contract
Hmm.
phase. My side, okay, great. We negotiated finally on a price. Signed on my side, went back to them. They went silent.
Hmm.
We were in a blackout period of anything and everything. It should have got signed a day earlier. 2 months later, the announcement by Microsoft that they just acquired Skype, and
Oh.
we were going to be the link to Skype, the enterprise version of Skype, and on the acquisition. And the 4 times the valuation that Skype had, which we signed a day earlier, but that buyout price would have been worth 4 times more by the Microsoft buyout price.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's the way things work. We moved on. I sold it a couple of years later to a STT group, Next Wave, for break even. And yeah, At what point you guys say, okay, after 10 years of working on your own company, this is what advice to everybody out there, right? For the best business practices, so on. And how do you know if you're going to succeed or where you're going with this? We're
Hmm.
very innovative. We've got market of enterprise here and there. We're still way ahead of the game. Our services are a million pieces of functionality, features behind it all. Because we need this, we need that. And we immediately build it in because we can. And we did all this building a company with $800 of capitalization.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was the investment. We did not, because of all the excess times and the what I saw of investors, I wasn't impressed with the VCs and how they
Right.
managed all of
Right.
dot com. And I was still a bit bitten by that, scorned by that.
Yep. Yep. I get it. I have a buddy that sold a company in Canada for 50 million. And he said, if I hadn't taken money and I only hit 5 million, I still would have exited with more in my pocket.
Lessons to be learned. But also, it's about, okay, at what point do you say, okay, what's worse, being in a rut or failure? And fail with the first couple of years, you start over, you keep going, you get the tenacity, the passion, you just keep on reinventing yourself.
Yep.
Like Angry Birds, it took them
Yep.
45 different other games before Angry Birds finally hit. They were in bankruptcy. Or even Marvel Comics, it was Stan Lee. He was my age and he almost went bankrupt, right?
Wow.
Before, because Howard the Duck wasn't quite the hit, but before Iron Man hit, everything else started taking off for him. So at what point you say we're in a rut? After 10 years of running the business and revenues are still struggling, your CAGR is maybe only 5% per year, but
Mhm.
10% max when you should be up around at that point 50%, 60% per year on that level of growth because the
Yep.
technology, the
Yep.
demand out there, the paradigm shift in how we do communications. So it's better to say, okay, time to start something new. And the odd part is we're in Singapore at that point. So after 14 years in Japan, 5 years in the Philippines, and then there are 14 years in Singapore. So my wife and I moved to Singapore, and when we sold that company, I took on a job after that with Accenture as
Hmm.
managing director of infrastructure,
Hmm.
right, infrastructure services. My first paycheck, my wife looked at me and said, "Wait a second, you could have been earning this kind of money the whole time?" Yeah, but going to startup is like having your own baby, and everything you
Yep.
got, blood, sweat, tears,
Yep.
brain capacity, is all
Yep.
poured into it, right?
Yep.
For success.
Yep.
So forcing it out to a buyout situation to break even, took a little short sabbatical, and then you enjoyed and back to the work life, right?
Sure.
Working for
Sure.
the
Sure.
man, which is an interesting story because at that point I was hired with a different mandate at Accenture. I was essentially hired to create my own business within Accenture.
Hmm. That's appealing.
This whole new thing is 2011, right? The whole new thing at cloud. How are they going to be adapting to it? How are they going to be managing it?
Yep.
And so coming in, seeing the different opportunities, having a different mandate than everybody else in
Yep.
there as well. You're rather alone
Yep.
doing this, and you're going off to our different development labs, like in the development studios, like in Milan. I found a little piece of code that was called Accenture Cloud Platform for Service Providers, ACP for SP. It was basically a hybrid management, like a VMware, because VMware was just basically kicking off.
Mhm.
OpenStack was just starting out at the time as well, even though it started years earlier, but getting out to Asia and utilization. So I'm seeing, okay, great. We have an application that can go on-prem, on-site, that can run your cloud and your virtualized environment. This is good. If we take that to a whole new level of as a service now,
Mhm.
multi-tenant, now it's just instead of ACP for SP for service providers alone, the
Yep.
channel partners who are actually providing the services, it's just ACP and it's a
Yep.
whole hybrid piece. So we integrated AWS, Azure, Terramark, which is Verizon now, and NTT, all on a single platform. So you don't have to go out and get your certification of skills and professional certification on AWS, another one on different logic on Azure, another
Right.
one on NTT, and all the different configuration. You had one portal, one configuration, access to all clouds. Deploy
That's
here,
powerful.
deploy it on Azure, deploy it on NTT's cloud.
Yep.
It is today the number one hybrid cloud platform in the world, which is good, the ACP. So in doing that, trading that, and doing consulting for companies, a transformation and migration from their legacy to the cloud, because of my deep technical knowledge, helping them plan and organize what is their methodology, what is their framework they're following,
Right.
how are they actually going forward and adopting to this transformation. That was my main piece. I actually really enjoyed my time at Accenture. A lot of like minds, a lot of great people there. Like everybody has good projects and bad projects. The wrong
Mhm.
people in the project, it's going to be a bad project.
Yep.
But my forte was really pulling projects out of the fire,
Mm-hmm.
identify how to retrofit things, how to make sure get things back on track. The firefighting, there's a problem, call me in. So taking over from other companies, I'll say, okay.
Yeah, that's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had some good friends still at the board of STT from my company, Silverback, back in the day. And we had breakfast. They said, Steve, me being a data center guy, coming from the data center world, before all the cloud stuff I did and the software and X as a service stuff I was doing the last years,
Right.
also included the data center. Whenever I walked into data centers during that time, we were like, guys, you need to fix this. You got all kinds of critical issues here.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
maintaining, right? And then I can only put half a rack in because you can't cool the amount of power I need.
Right.
You know, I was putting in 8 kilowatts per rack for servers. Ignore the technical talk here, but
Yeah.
it's a big jump, right? From the 5 kilowatt availability. So I have to use the next rack, go half a rack. And the data centers just to keep the cooling ability for them to be able to keep my servers under
Cool.
control. They said, I see the board came in, and we had a nice breakfast with friends. Said, would you build a data center here in Singapore? I said, no. He was a bit shocked since I'm a data center guy as well. As there's right now, there's 2.2 million square feet of excess space in Singapore. We're talking 2000, end of 2013, beginning of 14, right?
Okay. Okay.
So at that time there was, but I said my biggest problem right now is no data center can support what I'm putting in. All the cloud, I'm putting in 100 racks, contiguous racks of cloud watts per rack, if not 12. This is
Mm-hmm.
back then. It tried to be 12 very, very shortly after because power requirements. But so I don't have the power density in these data centers, any of these facilities. If I were to build a data center, I would need to build it that has actually can evolve. That's not
Mm-hmm.
so brick and mortar and legacy. And all the new ones that came out last year are already obsolete. They cannot
Mm-hmm.
sustain what is happening in the IT world. There's a complete disconnect, a
Mm-hmm.
gap of what the customer wants and what the data center is providing. Right? Just when I
Mm-hmm.
walk in, and I look at the crack units, they're going at 80%, right? It's I say it's freezing cold in the data center, but the floor has no open vents on a raised floor. So I call all the facilities guys up. I say, guys, we stand here and look at this. I see 14 problems right now with just standing here. I want you to name one, right?
Right.
This is a
Right.
data center in Singapore. They look around. No, it's all okay. First, your crack units behind me here are running at 80%. Okay, now how's the air getting above the floor? Oh, air vent. There's no air vents. Okay, great. We need to line up air vents across the floor to get it into the rack. Next question, let's walk in for the racks. How's the air getting in the racks? The door's glass. So
Yeah.
on the front
Yeah.
server, they have glass doors on these racks.
Right.
So how's the air getting in? And the bottom's fully enclosed,
Right.
right? So
Yeah. This isn't gonna
onto the
work.
rack. So they're like, oh, okay, you guys need to watch what customers are installing. Now I will say this, and of course, I'd open the rack up, all the spacers, it's all HP gear. Okay. I take the spacers off, put your hand in there, it's 104 degrees in
Mm-hmm.
that server rack. The back part of the rack is mesh, which is good. So it's getting a little bit of airflow from the back, circling back around again what was in there in the room. I gotta say, it's a testament to HP on the resiliency of their servers because these are
Mm-hmm.
8-year-old servers, probably 60% full, running about 6 kilowatts in a 5 kilowatt environment with no airflow. I was quite so. Anyways, took over, created a new initiative called STT GDC,
Okay.
Global Data Centers, and then bought it into a company called GDS in China. So GDS in China, GDS for Singapore, GDC C for China, but we're reversed. I'm in Singapore, they're in China. So the play on words. So as we created this company, now the third largest data center company in the world, by the way,
Wow.
they are doing it very well. And I gotta say, it's got some decent leadership there. There's been always challenges with personalities and so on. So I went off and diversified more towards the cloud again with
Mm-hmm.
creating the differentiation of we're not just a wholesale data center. We got to be more than that. Yeah, all the data centers now are just building space and power. They're basically a cold storage facility. We got to
Mm-hmm.
be just a cold storage. We have to have over the top services, network services, and the likes. Went after buying rack space at the time, which would have been fantastic. We had a great buyout price, probably $3.8 billion for them as a whole.
Wow.
That
Wow.
would have been great to steal, if you ask me. But my guys on the other side, the finance side, made things too complicated. And on the wayside, and Apollo Global ended up buying it for 5.2 billion.
Wow.
Hey, lucky that. Went after a few other acquisitions as well, and did some due diligence between Temasek, for Temasek on the Dell and EMC acquisition. for the Temasek side of things, the $19 billion that went in there
Wow.
as a long-term loan and not
Right.
equity. Yes. Doing these type of things, again, it's consulting, it's due diligence, doing everything I know and do what you know and do it well. Creating that in the entire process of developing STT Connect, STT Leap, a shared source model across our investees, and helping transform their companies from enterprise high churn environment, the data centers, into what's happening, focusing on the ISVs, the independent software vendors, the hyperscalers, right? The larger companies, the X as a service companies coming in, because that's the future customer for most of these data centers.
Right.
Not selling half a rack or one rack or 10 racks. It's
Right.
selling 1,000 racks or 1 megawatt, 2 megawatts plus. Going through and helping our investees transform their own organization and their sales, their operational, how they're set up to support it all from data center to cloud all the way through. It's a lot of consulting. And over the years, I've developed my own consulting methodology
Yep.
on how to approach things. So after I left STT, pursuing more, moving back to the Philippines and my resorts that I had before, everything else, some fun things. You get bored and you got to get back into the game.
Yep.
Starting with the consulting and helping companies do their transition, helping them with their
Mm,
journey.
mm,
And Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, they all had similar issues, similar challenges moving forward in the legacy environments that existed,
right.
how to start the journey. Are we going to go cloud first? Are we going to do cloud smart, built for purpose, built for service? How are we going to put in our hybrid cloud environments? How are we going to work with the multi-services that are oncoming with Kubernetes and all the things? And when one microservice platform for, say, a CRM or a call center, we touch in 7 different countries, 15 different locations.
Right.
The internet's no longer boxed in on a single country anymore. So your CRM could be in India, your chatbots could be in Tokyo, and AWS or Azure are privately held. Your Google Analytics is all coming out of America still. Your Oracle ERP is still running out of Tokyo and Hong Kong. And then, of course, your people are here in the Philippines for your BPO. A truly global environment. And we
Yeah.
cannot stop this machine from happening. Data privacy is a challenge. Data localization is okay. Data sovereignty is really taboo, right? This is
Mm.
our data.
Can,
So,
can you can you expand on that a little bit?
yeah. So there's a number of different data. Let's take the Philippines as a good example. Look at Indonesia, their model, what they've done. Indonesia had data sovereignty in place. Anything and everything about their people had to stay in country. But you
Mm,
could, what I learned at Accenture times is you could apply very easily to say, okay, we're going to host this in Singapore, but it's on net. So it's not going out to the internet. I got my direct connect service with AWS, Express Route with Azure, my Cloud Connect VPN services with Google, or IPsec VPN connecting straight into my cloud platform in Singapore to support all of Indonesia. So that's considered to be on net. It's not actually hitting the internet, the public internet.
mm,
So data sovereignty can be managed, but they manage it very loose because they know it's a global environment out there. All the access, all this X as a service, your software as a service. Your service now is not going to be local. Your Salesforce is going to be local. Even your ERP, your communication systems, like what I built at Silverback, is multi-country, right? One goes down, Singapore goes down, Hong Kong picks up. You fly to Tokyo or you fly to London, you go to the London servers, not the local servers. So
yep.
the point of presence, it's a peer-to-peer in industry environment, right? Privacy is very difficult to manage and to control because of
Yeah.
how you build sanctions around it. The Philippines, in their modernization approach, the maturity, they've tried to go down the data privacy and security route. Say, okay, are we doing data sovereignty? No, they haven't done that, which is a good decision. But is data regionalization and data localization? And this is where the core data, like for banks here, can use cloud platforms as an umbrella. Now, as of 3 years ago, they can use a software as a service. They can actually come in and engage ServiceNow and Salesforce, which they couldn't do before. But again,
Mm,
that content is held in Singapore or in Hong Kong generally, right? The core banking side on the AS400s and the likes are still on-prem, are still in country. So that's the name and the association of credit card information or anything that's sensitive. Now, this is not actually law or regulated for enterprise at this point in time. The whole strategy of the Philippines is to have a government first, right? So
mm,
government must suspend $1 billion going into the cloud. Actually, 2 years ago, they were 5% cloud integrated,
right. Massive
15%.
changes. Yeah. They've made massive changes already.
Oh yeah, and this year probably about 35% of that migration from legacy to cloud will be happening.
Wow.
That means like your SEC, all the registration materials and AWS in Sydney, Australia, all
Right.
have to go here. It does take government 12 months to decide on the budget. So the budget was decided last September for this year. So there is no budget for anything else for this year
Mm.
because it wasn't decided last year on how to spend it, which means you can't have a 12-month, oh, you must do it in 12 months, otherwise you'll be penalized. Where's the budget coming from? So how do we, government understanding how government works is its own internal challenge.
Yeah, it's its own B to G, and G to G is yeah.
Trickle down to LGUs and everything else. And within the national versus the regional versus the local government as well, on the
Yep.
power diversification between those is another challenge. But I think we work with this with our data center association constantly, and I gotta say that the progress is quite amazing. Some great things happening. But so government and us helping them with some insights, not saying this is the way it is, this is it, but providing those perspective papers, a gentle way of saying, hey guys, this is how the internet's working, how this
Yep.
infrastructure is working, how data is working, and we need to be mindful of that. We can't stop progress. That's
What are you, forgive me if I don't want to throw negativity in this. My question is, what are you concerned about from the viewpoint of, again, protecting individuals' data rights and privacy? And even for small business owners, for a lot of people listening to this as running a small business, like they've got issues too, because they don't want, first off, I think a lot of them, they don't want to be sued for anything, obviously. But so it just seems like for a lot of people, most business owners, they're just good at what they do. The dry cleaner is good at dry cleaning. A lot of this stuff is so far above and beyond their head. What are some of the top 2 to 5 things you think should maybe be on everyone's radar?
okay. Well, the good news is that this isn't going to have any impact on anyone for probably 2 to 3 years.
Hmm.
Again, government has the 12-month mandate, but that's been turned into 24-month because they can't do it this year. So this year, okay, we'll get the plan ready, we'll get the budgets ready, get it approved in September. Now we can start executing and planning for next year. But they still have to outsource the resources to migrate everything back.
Hmm.
And where do they migrate it to? Another other challenge here as well that we've posted is that once they do bring it back, most of the peering, if you're on Globe Network and PLDT Network, the two major telcos here,
Yep.
they don't peer locally together very well at all. It's very
No.
political, which means they peer out of Hong Kong. So PLDT user, so you're on PLDT, you're making a voice call to me. Okay, I'm on Globe. Your call will go from you here to Hong Kong back to me on Globe.
Yep.
My return voice back to you will do least cost routing from me to India, to
Yep.
Vietnam Internet Exchange, back to Hong Kong, back to
It's
Pure.
nonsense. And you can't call from cell phones, the landlines in this country. It's bananas.
Yeah, so there are inherent challenges that need attention and maturity, and this is where the data center industry kicking off is really helping as
Mm.
far as power utilization, power availability, and the government regulations being so loose and fast changing. It's amazing that they're taking these set in stone business practices and policies and procedures and being able to adapt them fast. So I will commend the power companies here being able to adapt in the last couple of years, the government as well, the DICT, TESA, BOI, the Department of Energy. They have done tremendous work and a lot of hard work to try to transform this country
Mm.
into a digital hub, right? A digital
Right.
infrastructure hub. Now, small enterprise, that's exactly how this is going to affect them. Again, the government's got 2 years basically of leeway before they have that mandate, if
Right.
that continues to move forward. It doesn't impact enterprise yet.
Right.
So it's still wide open for where you want to host everything and so on. In the end, within 2 years, Amazon, Azure, and Google and Alibaba, which already has their local availability zone, they will all have their local availability zones here.
Hmm.
So it's already in the works, already being planned. Google, everybody's waiting to see as it's maturing before it's an onslaught of things
Now,
coming in.
now, what about even worldwide? Because you talked about how your team might be in the Philippines, but your data is saved in Singapore, and how everything's spread across the different countries this way. I guess that's why I'm wondering, where do you see the future of this going? Because again, a lot of people, especially since COVID, they realize they have to digitize their business. But now that brings on, I've got all these privacy concerns and I've got to save my data. And do I get a external hard drive, or do I put it in the cloud, or like you said, do I do smart cloud? Like it's just such a complicated for the
Yeah.
everyday person.
It's also what is defined as critical data, right?
Right.
As that private data. So, like in the United States, okay, and other countries with Facebook, let's look at Facebook's policy.
Yeah.
They can sell your information all day long, but they cannot sell your name. So you are a
Mm,
hexadecimal 16-digit number associated with your demographics of your pictures,
mm,
everything else that
like your
may be
hash
out.
number.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. They can sell that. Okay, so that's when you hit I accept on any of these pieces, you're hitting accept to these data privacy rules, okay, by the,
Mm,
the US government as an example. But if I buy a car in the United States, okay, physically apply for a loan or insurance, whatever, I will suddenly, my father's house, because I've been out here for 37 years, never get because I don't exist in the United
right.
States. I'm a ghost, right? I've been gone too long, never had a job in America, even
Right.
though I was IBM International, Exodus from
Right.
Japan. But so all of a sudden I get this massive pieces. There's a security breach there because my name is associated with all these mailings,
Right.
insurance, credit card companies, loans, all the way through. That's already a flaw. Now we go digitization, a mass quantity of data. What is sensitive? And if we look at sensitive data being okay, if it's about you, your government tax paying, your credit card information. So this could be considered as critical data. Okay.
Mm,
And this is what we're trying to help the government define as well. And it's a nice navigating way of saying, okay, we need to define what that critical data actually means because we cannot inhibit a BPO when all the information they're going to is international. I
right.
mean, the network here, I say the peering's that way, but again, it's also when I say the peering's very broken,
Right.
is probably the
Right.
easiest way to say it. But it's that way for a reason because nothing, no content is hosted in the Philippines up until this point, pretty much. Very little content.
Mm,
So everything goes international. So it's about that all the telcos providing international support to all the data centers that are out there. That's why we
mm,
have 8 landing stations in operation today, 10 more coming online, which is the second most connected country in all of Southeast Asia.
wow.
Singapore being number one with 27
Wow.
landing stations. Okay. So we actually were built for external coverage, right? Of exiting for requests and bringing it back in. So now we're reversing that. We're going peer to peer more. We're doing more, bringing in the country with the data center industry. And that's providing a bit of a conundrum because it's a lot of transitions that have to happen in their network and how these telcos are peering together. And they are making slow progress, but as things start coming in more, the ISVs, the hyperscalers, all the new data centers that will be connected not just to data center to internet, data center to international, data center to local, data center to data center, and data center to cloud. So this says, okay, great. I'm in my data center here, maybe hosted for my critical stuff, my AS400s or my servers, but now I got my direct connect to AWS on net, okay, which could
Mm-hmm.
be in Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, for a backup from my local availability zone here. Got my landing zones out there. I got my IPsec VPNs connected to my chat bots, try
Right.
to keep that secure. But a lot of these, you also have Cloudflare, which helps international to say, how do we manage a lot of the security? And so in the end, how will it affect SMEs? I don't believe it will affect them by any means.
Thing they have to worry about. It's something the industry will take care of for them.
Yes, exactly. This is our job to make sure that they stay functional. It's like when President Trump said he's going to ban TikTok. About 6.6 million SMEs in the United States that will be affected by that.
Mm-hmm.
Massive amounts of users, not just users, but people affected. That's why they really couldn't do it. They're just shooting themselves in the foot, and that's the
Right.
case.
And it's a catch 22 too, because there is influence. Like I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, it was announced China was investing 150 million into Reddit. And all of a sudden I felt like I was being censored on Reddit. But like you say, for some people, like it's with such large user base, some of the stuff, the master planning that goes in can have sweeping ramifications for the user base. And
Yeah,
that's an interesting concept. It's almost a different form of governance when you get into that.
yeah. We will talk about what it means to lock down borders, like what's happening now, and how that impacts everybody. And that's, I mean, we're a global world, right? It's a
Yeah.
global economy. You can't stop the natural progression of things. And it's a software-defined world. What I talk about with my book, Infrastructure Modernization, it's all about that. It's the legacy to cloud transformation, right? How do you get
Mm,
it there? How do you define it? What methodologies do you deploy, right? What as far as migration? What you need to understand from an enterprise architecture, from a solution and technical architecture standpoint, and defining it. What are you going to budget? What's the art of sizing for these virtual machines or these containers that you want to run on? And then it goes into the foundational programs for that digital transformation of how do you modernize your data center, your network, your cloud network? Because most people
Mm,
think network, two cups on a string. It's not that way. You get your software defined LAN, yes, the SDN, your software defined WAN, your wide area network, your software defined DWDM, so that way your two storage facilities can actually dynamically use each other, right? Go back and forth.
mm,
So then, of course, going into your cloud modernization, hybrid cloud modernization, all of this is part of the digital journey and
mm.
that CIO's playbook to digital transformation. On these, who I talk to? I call in Accenture or one of the main large SI consulting companies, spend millions of dollars, or I can buy a $200 book and have all that in my fingertips. There and done that. Now, I will say, digressing on the book, but it's the last book that's written by a human in technology, I would say. And it's got a lot of my personality in it. So when I talk about, all right, what do you do about the teapots, the goat breeders, the dead wood? That's sometimes a bit of a harsh perspective, but it's like, all right, let's keep the readers enjoying themselves on such dry reading materials, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
transforming.
If people want to get a copy, where's the best place for them to go?
Actually, Amazon, it's available on Kindle. So you go to Amazon.com, look up Infrastructure Modernization, Stephen J. Davis, and you'll see the Kindle version and or the hard copy version.
Got it.
Both are fantastic. I highly recommend it, but not because of that, because this amount of knowledge sharing. And if you're in the industry, it's about taking what you can, developing it into your own professional persona,
Yeah.
and then archive the rest
Yeah.
for
Right.
another
For
date. Yeah.
reference. 100%. 100%. 100%. Stephen, this has been a great call. I've got like a page of notes here. It's fascinating because this is like the underbelly of our digital world. And it's a world that a lot of us don't get to see. We don't know how it operates, don't know how it accesses. I really appreciate you giving us a peek through the window into how it works and sharing your own story as well. Is there anything I haven't asked you, I should have asked you?
Actually, there's a lot of things happening out there. I got to say, the countries and everything that's happening. So where we're going from here, a lot of the SMEs, they're going to benefit by the amount of data coming out. And we haven't really discussed AI, which could be
Mhm.
a whole another
Another
hour.
call.
Yeah, so we won't probably get into that just yet, but and what the impact of AI is to digitization.
Yep.
But one thing to close on is as we go through the cloud journey before, everybody says, what's after the cloud? Okay, hybrid cloud, central management. What's after that? You know, big data. Big data is the ability to store and collect data.
Mhm.
Right? How you digitize, right? The digital transformation. It's the ability to say, okay, all this data, dark data, archive data, live data, usable data, all the log I'm creating and collecting, what do I do with it? What
Mhm.
insights can I build off it? This is analytics to predictive
Mhm.
analytics,
Mhm.
machine learning. And now we have generative AI taking that data and actually building additional insights and at speed, right? Which is impressive. So on this, the job of the CIO is a daunting task, right?
Mhm.
And knowing one, what question to ask is the hardest part in the journey because they can't be the jack of all trades, master of none, but better than a master of one, right? They have to understand who to talk to, what question to ask, who to ask it to, where to ask it, and how to ask it.
Mhm.
This is what my book's about: is really providing that resource to a CIO level or head of IT director to say, what do I need to do to know these answers,
Right.
and what's after this next phase?
Yep.
We all know what GPUs are doing, transforming the CPU world, and so on. So this journey continues not just from what we talked about with the LPARs before, from the mainframes, dawn of the internet, but all the way through, and it's going to continue to grow. And what does it mean for all of us, and what we
Mhm.
need to focus on the
Mhm.
different. So it's been a great opportunity to talk with you, and hopefully
Yes.
you'll demonstrate this journey that people can take advantage of.
Yes. For people that want to learn more, go get his book on Amazon, Infrastructure Modernization. And if people want to reach out to you personally, Stephen, where should they go?
Actually, they can reach out to me on either LinkedIn. Please feel free, Stephen Davis. You can look up Data Center Association of the Philippines or dcap.ph is the current organization. That's our
Mm.
not-for-profit organization that helps the transformation of the industry itself, the modernization of the industry, creating a central voice across the entire ecosystem for data centers. So that way we can create this country into at least a secondary digital center hub.
So you can find him on LinkedIn, Stephen Davis, Stevendavis, or you can check out the website, C is in cat, A is in apple, P is in pineapple, .ph for Philippines. Stephen, thanks so much for coming and chatting. I definitely want to have you back for a follow-up call on AI. Thank you for talking with us, knowing you got your own following, your own clients, your own direct reports, your own community to be talking to. Thank you for coming and sharing your insights with us.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, Daryl.